It's not COVID or not COVID, it's all of it, right? And so for us, that is an extremely valuable thing to bring to the world, and the way we do it, again, and the patent around it, that's the differentiator. It's like, okay, we've thought about this new way of doing this in real time, patent, and then develop it into a product. And so, it's just kind of unique ways of doing things, and then driving as fast as we can to getting it out into a product.
So you see on the weather all the time, like air quality day is whatever it is, right? Like who judges that? Is like the weather station does? Like who actually is like testing the air quality?
Yeah. So essentially there are, in the big cities, there are big detectors, and typically it's called PM 2.5 and PM 10. So that's particulate matter, 2.5 microns of size. So again, it's just a size of a particle in the air. And then 10 microns, and then there's different measurements. And so it's government organizations that are monitoring that, and it's publicly available data based on these public stations. So that is good to have, right? And especially for wildfires, and there's times where pollen is really bad for people with allergies, but it's not very specific, right? It doesn't tell you too much, but it's a general, like pollution in general is a major problem, right? You look at like some of the China and India,
Vietnam's bad.
Yeah, like sometimes it's like just unhealthy to go outside at all, right? And that's crazy.
Even I'm like, is this fog or is this pollution? Like you never know some days.
Yeah, and there's a very real health effect with that. That's very well studied. Like it's taking years off your life when you're breathing that stuff, because you're not supposed to be breathing that. It's not supposed to live inside your lungs. And so that's a problem, and that's the stuff, just general pollution, that's measured already, right? That we know that. And the next thing is like, having your indoor haven away from that is important, right? If you live in India and outside's terrible, typically, indoor can be 5 to 10 times worse than outdoors, right? And so you really do need to be careful about what your indoor solutions are when you're in a place like that, because buildings are engineered for air to flow, right? Air flows in from the outside, and so if the outside's really bad, you need to take care of stuff on the inside. And so, that's...
So this might be incorrect or crazy, but like, there's no such thing as new air, right? Like the air we're breathing now is basically air like from thousands of years ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's...
Like we don't make up new air, right?
Plants, the cycles, we're breathing oxygen, we're breathing the oxygen, putting out CO2, so that's kind of the cycle. But yeah, I mean, it's a cycle. Yeah,
okay.
Like what you're saying, I think, is that the matter, right, the oxygen particles are going from one thing to another, back and forth through the cycle. Yeah.
Okay. And is there any difference between like having good air quality and good water quality? Like, is your product gonna be able to like do anything with water quality in the future, or that's something totally different?
Yeah, that's interesting. So water is a lot easier to clean than air, and if you think about it, we have a lot of control over how we distribute water. It goes through these pipes and these small volumes. It's a very distinct volume, and you can filter it, you can zap it with UV light, you can use different technologies, you can move it slow, you can move it fast, and you can also choose to drink it or not, right? You put it in your cup and you're like, I'm not gonna drink this, and that's okay. You won't die. You can get water from somewhere else. With air, you have this giant volume of air. You have to breathe it every second. You don't have a choice. And, the volume is so big that it's a lot harder to process all the air all the time, right? And so our technology could translate to water, but I would say there are technologies that work decent for water, right? And you hear about lead contamination and other things, but there's mechanisms that are just fine to do that, right? Like our technology could make improvements in water treatment, but I would say it wouldn't be as impactful as air, because there's a lot less understanding and solutions going towards air quality than water quality.
And so you either create a database already, or you're about to create a database that track all these like impurities of concern, all this stuff going on that you're doing?
Yeah, so
first of all, no one else has done this yet?
Yeah, well, in the way that we're doing it, it's essentially what hasn't been done is a real-time programmable sensing capability for any pollutant in the air, right? So that's kind of what we've developed. And so, at its core, what we're doing is we are uniformly ionizing a stream of air that's kind of sampled from a volume of air, and then we are measuring the kind of the wavelength of light, or the fluorescence, from that ionized particle in the air. So if there's a virus that's coming through there and it gets ionized, it's going to emit light, and you can detect that wavelength of light and that concentration of light, and then that's where the database comes in. When that wavelength matches a wavelength that represents COVID-19, that means COVID-19 is there. And so we can be very specific with this, because we've shown that COVID-19 and like influenza virus, they're very similar in nature, but they emit a different wavelength of light, and we can sense that each one is individually trackable, right? And so that's kind of what we're doing with this. And the database means, like, in a laboratory, we do have to say, like, okay, COVID-19, you run it through, you ionize it, it emits this wavelength, that gets saved in this database. Bird flu goes airborne and becomes an epidemic or pandemic. Run bird flu through, analyze the wavelength of light, and then that goes into the database. Firmware update real time. Now you can detect bird flu, right? So it's like whenever the next superbug comes out that is potential to become a pandemic, we have the ability to immediately sense it and know where it's at, right? Whereas with COVID, we had no idea, right? It was spreading like wildfire. We can prevent that through.
So if next year Death Virus 101 comes out of nowhere, you can already handle it.
We have to be able to isolate it and have it in a laboratory and test it. But once we can do that, we can have the technology to sense it in the air anywhere.
So what is, I'm not going to say this right, what is ionization, fluorescence, spectroscopy something?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was just describing. So picture this. Picture a bug zapper. You have a mosquito, you have a fly, you have a wasp. All of them are coming in and they see the bug zapper and they touch it and they get zapped. Each one of those, if you look closely, the color of the light is probably just a tiny bit different, or looks just a little bit different. That's because they are organically different. Each one of those things are. And so the spectroscopy part is a measurement system to say that light emitted, this is the wavelength of that light. And then you are pairing that measurement with a known measurement from a pollutant, like a disease or like a virus or bacteria. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah. So
it does.
Yeah. So you're zapping pollutants in the air and measuring the light that comes out of it and using that to detect.
Can a room area be too dirty for VOD to be effective?
No. So what I would say is, even with basic air quality sensing, if a room's really dirty and it's a closed system and you turn on a violet, it'll be clean soon. Right. So we are removing any kind of impurity very effectively. When it stays at a high level of kind of like dirtiness in the air, that means there's an input of dirty air from somewhere. And that's something that we've actually been able to diagnose in places. So like, for example, we had a violet at a nursing station in a elder care facility, and consistently the air quality was bad. And they're like, well, why isn't this like cleaning the air and lowering it? And I was like, it should be, let me check. And it turns out there was construction happening in that building, and it was right next to an HVAC suction, and it was blowing construction fumes all over the facility. And they wouldn't have known, except for the fact that the violet was detecting bad stuff in the air. And it was cleaning it at that nursing station, but because there was constantly bad stuff being put in, it was constantly high. And so, yeah. And in another case, we found that a working space above a commercial kitchen at certain times of the day had terrible air quality, and it's because they weren't ventilating the kitchen very well. And it's like we were able to figure that out, and they thought that they had set up like the best system ever, right? But they didn't, right? And once you measure it, you can kind of see what's going on.
So on a day-to-day basis, when you know what, I've done as much as I can do today, I need to stop.
I think if you start your day right, you can end the day right. So starting the day right means, here's the things I need to accomplish today. And I think there's a lot of schools of thought on this, right? Where you have you can have a checklist, but from that checklist, you maybe have 1 to 3 really big things, right? And you want to get those 3 things done. And if you get those 3 things done, it's a good day, even if you didn't get the smaller things done, right? I think there's a tendency, and I'm guilty of this sometimes, right, where you just want to check as many boxes as you can, right? So
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Clear my email, let me go send these 4 emails.
I woke up, that's a check block. Got out of bed, that's a check block.
Yeah.
Brush my teeth, that's a check block.
Yeah, and that's fine, and that's motivation, but to feel good at the end of the day, you're going to want
something kind of big, yeah.
done. And so if you start the day off with a intention setting, like here's my goal for the day, right? The rest of the stuff, yeah, I'm gonna have to handle, but this stuff I'm gonna make sure it gets done. And then whenever I do that, in combination with maybe getting a workout in, or right, something like that, then I feel pretty accomplished.
So back to your partners, I'm guessing your partner's not working for free, right? But then again, you don't want to give like all your profit, all the stuff away too, right? So how do you find a balance for your partners, like where everyone's like a win-win, right?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it depends on the partnership. If it's like a reseller partnership, it's just negotiating a percentage where they feel like they're getting enough for it to be worth it. And for us, it needs to be, you need to set your margins up and set your cost of goods up and your sales price up so that you can have a partner. Because some people can't, right? If you have a product that can only sell for this much and you can build it for this much and there's no room, there's not a business to be had with a reseller. It's just going in. I think you do need to get smart up front, and that's where having advisors or smart people around you can help, where it's like, hey, you've done kind of like strategic partnership deals before. What's the range of normal here? And then what do we need to look like for this to be attractive to our partner too? And so we did a lot of that up front, where it's like figuring ourselves out, and in this kind of transition from direct selling to facilities to like, okay, we want to go scale quicker with the partner. So yeah, you said it. It's just finding something that's attractive to both parties, and then doing a lot of relationship building up front and kind of getting champions within the other organization so that it'll be successful.
So like we talked earlier, like most founders, we suck at physical health, right? But a lot of founders suck even more at mental health, right? What's your advice for founders like maybe struggling with mental health, going through depression, whatever the case may be, like how to like pick themselves back up and like get back in the game, so to speak?
Yeah, I think you need to understand your recharge mechanisms. So everybody's different in that way. The first thing is I schedule therapy sessions monthly. Do however often you need, but I hold that. And that's just an outlet to talk through